I would agree. So MVP, I don't think there's going to be a ton of debate here. Joe Burrow, I think most people would say he's the second best quarterback in the league. If you have him any lower than 5, I can't talk to you. He's in my eyes the second best quarterback.
Yeah.
I think the precision, the situational awareness, the situational excellence of Joe Burrow is fantastic. Probably the most accurate quarterback in the football right now. There's an argument for Mahomes just because of how accurate he can be outside of the pocket extending plays. But I think within the structure of an offense, Joe Burrow is one of the most precise passers we've ever seen, and especially in the league today, and especially in this division. And also, what's Cincinnati without him? We talk about value a lot on this show.
Yeah.
What is Cincinnati without him? We've seen him without him. They're not good. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? Like, I know Jamar Chase has helped that as well. T. Higgins, like, he has helped. I'm not saying that. But, like, think about Andy Dalton, right? He was there before him. Put Andy Dalton on this roster. Could they win 8, 9 games? Maybe. Are they 13 wins and arguably one of the top 3 teams in terms of Super Bowl odds? No.
Exactly. So, like, and then I try to think of somebody else that could fit this mold. The only one that I really get close with is Lamar Jackson, just because you know how much he can change, like, the entire landscape. You good?
Yeah, we're good.
But outside of that, like, you look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh doesn't have a guy that, like, they really, really rely on. And then you have Cleveland. I mean, you can't lean on anybody there.
You don't even know what you're getting with Deshaun this year.
You can take Kenny Pickett out. We've seen Pittsburgh without their number one guy. They're still going to be an above 500 team.
Right. And I mean, you could argue T.J. Watt, like they win like 80% of the games when he plays, but I don't think he's at as much of a valuable position as Burrow.
Yeah.
All right, offensive player of the year, you mentioned Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar fits here because I think value-wise, there's other players that could fit that scheme that are mobile quarterbacks that could still win, but I don't think they'll be as productive as Lamar, and I think that's where the offensive player of the year thing comes into play, right? The production that Lamar is going to put up is unprecedented. He's going to be able to probably run for 800 yards, throw for another 3,000, lot of touchdowns, right? He's dynamic, fun. That's kind of fits the bill for an offensive player of the year. Like
Right.
Cooper Kupp, for example, as a wide receiver. Dynamic, fun, productive, right? That's kind of what an offensive player of the year is. I think that's what Lamar is.
For sure.
Our defensive player of the year, let's go with T.J. Watt. Again, we mentioned him for MVP, but the way he's able to wreck games. I mean, think about week 1 against Cincinnati. I know Burrow's coming off surgery, but still, like the way he was able to disrupt the game week 1 against arguably one of the best teams in football.
Yeah,
like he can wreck games. When he plays, they win 80-something% of the games. Like he is a game wrecker. I think the best edge rusher in the league. Is there a lot of debate? I think Nick Bosa's up there.
Nick Bosa would be up there, but I mean, somebody that changes the game on a week-to-week basis. I mean, we've seen him do it against Cleveland. We've seen him do it against Cincinnati. You name the team that we've played. Whenever TJ Watt's in there, the game is 100% different just because of him.
And I think he also, it's interesting because Pittsburgh's wart, in a sense, is their defensive backfield.
Yeah.
Right? Outside of Minka, they don't have a ton of cover guys. We don't know what Joey Porter is yet. But with the pass rush, you don't need to cover for 6-7 seconds. How about, could you give me 2.5? Because by then, Highsmith or TJ Watt are going to be there, so TJ lands at DPOY. I think he'll lead the league in sacks.
Yeah, he's so valuable.
Let's go with another Steeler here for Breakout Player of the Year. Now, we floated back and forth George Pickens.
Between two Steelers, yeah.
And Kenny Pickett. I do like Pickens. I don't want to say he already broke out, but I don't think it would be as much of a surprise if he was like top 5 in the league in receiving. I think it would be a fairly big shock if Kenny Pickett comes out and is a top 7 quarterback. I do. Like, I think he's good. He's talented. People saw flashes
even top
last
10.
year. Yeah, people saw flashes last year, but I think he's going to take such a large step forward. I do think he's going to end up somewhere around 8 to 10 in terms of the best quarterbacks in the league, and I think that's a pretty big step. I think he was somewhere around 18 to 20 last year.
Yeah.
So if we could bump up 10 spots, that's insane, right? That's worthy of a Breakout Player of the Year.
And you can see it, like you can see it coming down the line too. I mean, the end of last season was super impressive, right? The writing's on the wall for Kenny Pickett to really take over and be really good in the system. So this season, I think, is the perfect time, right? Because you have the weapons. Your offensive line is getting better. The team around you is getting built up. So, I mean, it's not like it's totally reliant on you. And you have a really good run game if that offensive line can do what we think it's going to do.
And
Clear some more
Najee,
holes for Najee.
Jalen Warren.
Yeah.
Good
So
backfield.
if they can take pressure off of Pickett, and Pickett doesn't have to drop back 50, 55 times a game, and he doesn't feel too much of the pressure, I think he's going to be really, really good.
Also, something worth noting that the early schedule is fairly favorable for Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Again, you get the Niners early when they don't know who their quarterback is, and they generally start slow. I think we had them at like 6-1 or something like that, like 7-0. Like they're going to start out strong, and that's huge for a rookie quarterback. So, Kenny Pickett, breakout player of the year.
Yeah.
Coach of the year. We've already talked a lot about him, but Zach Taylor. I think he kind of gets overshadowed because Burrow is so good, but there you have to balance how good your quarterback is. You know, your wide receivers, you got to spread the ball around, right? Offensive schemes, culture, right? You'd think Cincinnati was a losing culture. I know a lot of that is Joe Burrow. A lot of that is the head coach.
Yeah.
A ton of that. And to be able to go and to measure how good a coach is, how good is he against an Andy Reid? How good is he against Belichick, right?
And he wins those big games.
He's like, what, I think either 2-1 or 2-2 against Andy Reid. Like, he competes against those top-level coaches. So that tells me he can I hate, this going to sound so weird. He can, like, jive with the best of them in terms of the coaches. Like, he can X and O just as good as some of the top coaches in football. Because when he's matched up against them, he competes.
Yeah, you have a point. I mean,
it's crazy.
You look at the matchups. They called Arrowhead Stadium Burrowhead for a while.
I mean, it didn't work out this past year, but I mean, they did beat them en route to the Super Bowl at Arrowhead.
Yeah, so I mean, look, to be able to completely turn a franchise on its ear that quickly.
Yeah, and like I said, I know Burrow helped, but like that, there's so much coaching there as well.
Yeah, do you think Kenny Pickett would be this good without a Mike Tomlin?
Absolutely not.
Exactly.
Like, Mahomes without Reid?
It matters where you land, and I think we've talked about that a lot. Right, you could put the best college prospect into a really, really crappy situation, and it's not going to look great, no matter how good the quarterback is. So the culture built by Zach Taylor, very, very good. Lands him Coach of the Year.
I mean, we talked about those first round busts. We have a little bit of time, so we can kind of go on a segue. But like E.J. Manuel, Buffalo was nothing when E.J. Manuel was out there, right? Josh Rosen in Arizona, they were Sam Darnold in New York.
Bad.
Right, like Dwayne Haskins in Washington, we just saw, their owner sold. He's terrible. Zach Wilson in New York, Justin Fields in Chicago, right?
Mark Sanchez in New York.
Mark Sanchez, right? So it matters a ton where you land. I would argue it's the vast majority of the determination for your success is where you land.
Yep. Coach plays a huge part.
So to run back through, we got MVP Joe Burrow, Offensive Player of the Year Lamar Jackson, DPOY TJ Watt, Breakout Player of the Year Kenny Pickett, and Coach of the Year Zach Taylor for the AFC North. Guys, we did the AFC North predictions, the AFC North superlatives.